Hi folks, I'm Neil and this is the very first Rust Belt Minis hobby vlog. I hope you like it. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a hand sculptor of miniatures for tabletop war games and role-playing games, and I make kind of surrealist horror stuff. Lots of demons and monsters and possessed tanks and other vehicles. Resin casts of everything I make will be available again at some point in the future, including stuff I haven't made yet that I'll be featuring on this channel. The big project for the next bunch of weeks is going to be fulfilling all the Kickstarter orders. Here's my super high-tech checklist. These are the tanks I'm making. This isn't even all of them. I still have to make a bunch more. These are the bulk bases that came in for the non-tank miniatures. I'm making some smaller casts. These are the big Cyber Demon resin casts. They're all one piece and they're semi-hollow like that. I've been spending a lot of time down here with the pressure pot making all these resin casts. I always think I'm gonna be like, neat and organized and clean someday, but it's probably never gonna happen, so I just gotta keep plowing ahead. The great Canadian philosopher Red Green once said that anytime you see a half-converted bus sitting in someone's yard next to their house, overgrown with vines, that's the work of a perfectionist. Of course, there has to be some kind of happy medium. We just have to find it. So to keep from burning out for a couple hours a day, I'm still going to be sculpting while I'm working on the Kickstarter fulfillment. This is the concept art for a giant Treefolk guy named Billy Verdon. Billy Verdon, not spelled that way of course, is the medical term for the green bile that you projectile vomit when you're having a really bad day. This soda can is going to be the main form to show you how big he's going to be. It's a 130 millimeter round base. This is the permadeath miniature from Miscast Trent Holbrook and Totally Not Panicking, so you can kind of see the size difference there. He's about 1 inch tall, maybe a little over, and this one it's done is going to be probably 9 or 10 inches with the protrusions coming off of it. To block out the larger shapes, I'm going to be hot gluing balled up aluminum foil to the soda can. I use a hammer to kind of pound it to make it the exact shape that I want and to make it super dense so it's easier to sculpt on. I'm now just realizing this guy kind of looks like evil Plankton from SpongeBob, which I'm totally fine with. To make the armature for the projecting limbs, I'm going to be using this, I think it's high voltage wire. I found it in the woods. It's really heavy gauge aluminum cable that I'm going to be cutting. I'm going to be drilling holes in top of the soda can and plugging those in and hot gluing those in place so I can sculpt the limbs coming up. Here's the aluminum foil form that's going to be the butt. This one's going to be the belly. So I'll be gluing a lot of these things onto the soda can. Oh, we got a jam. What the heck is going on? Come on. Get. All right, there we go. What's the worst you've ever burned yourself with a hot glue gun? Why don't you drop that in the comments for me? One time I dropped some on my thigh because I was in my underpants. I should never hot glue in your underpants. That sucker, I swear it was a 3rd-degree burn. It smelled like breakfast sausage. It was like I was a roasting little piggy. All right, much better. Ah! So I've got the butt, the feet, the belly. I've got a resin cast eyeball of one of the hand sculpts that I did as a placeholder. I've got a different eyeball in mind for this one. And now I'm working on putting the heavy armature wire in for the tree limbs that are going to be coming off of this. I still have to figure out the arms that are going to be more or less flush with the body. And I've got the mouth Sharpied on. So I'm just playing around with the shape, trying to make it work, and it's starting to come together. I watched the movie Ernest Saves Halloween when I was a little kid, and it scared the bejesus out of me. Probably more than any movie ever has before or since. I grew up in the middle of a swamp, and we were kind of surrounded by pussy willow bushes that looked like the old gnarled cursed tree from that flick. So I think maybe I'm just trying to work through that with this sculpture. You can see the size difference here. So if your little warband comes across this guy in the woods, they're going to have a bad day. All right, it's starting to come together now. Its legs are going to be like a series of like knots and burls. It's got all these broken branches. And its arms and hands are going to be kind of rubbing its tummy. Because, trees are some of the greediest creatures in nature. I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot of things that'll eat their young and kill their young, but a tree will actually like smother and starve their young to death. What's up with that? Also, if trees weren't so greedy, like plants could just be like a foot tall, but they're going to get shaded out by these guys. So, it makes sense that you'd have an evil tree. Maybe they're all evil. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Trees are nice. You should probably plant one. Just finished up the jaws and the arm placement, although those will be temporary. Those will come off for the sculpting process. And I think that's the last step of building the foil armature, and now I'm ready for putty. Well, I caught a little buddy in the bathroom. Adorable. Yeah, you can go outside now. Doing the dance of its people. So fast forward about 8 hours ahead, and this is the putty work that I've begun. We've got what's going to look like kind of a saggy old butt, but it's also going to look like a burl or maybe a cluster of roots on the back of the model. We've got some gnarled tendrils coming up the bark here. I decided to remove some of the dead branches so I can sculpt them all the way around and have better access before putting them back on. I'm going to use Mr. Drill to start opening up some of these large trunk sections and hollowing them out. I got distracted from working on the big guy and started working on this little guy. I think it's been days at this point, so I'm going to try and go outside and leave the house. All right, here we go. Lost one of the pet boys. Here's a job for today. In the business, we call this polishing the turd. This is all like weird plastic tiles that I'm skim coating over. It's going to be beautiful. Let's check on the pollinator garden too. It's looking pretty good. Nice and overgrown, like a crazy person lives here. All right, back in the basement workshop where I belong. I just drained all the rusty water out of this air compressor tank. You know, good maintenance. Maintenance is important. I've got the workbench cleaned up now, mostly. I'm reusing these sticks because I don't want to throw them out. They do cost money, but they're getting pretty gross. They still work though. I've got some more resin cast coming out of the molds. Here's the Demon Queen. This one's not cleaned up yet. Still has a big plinth that gets sanded off. And here's the cleaned up one that's almost ready to ship. I just have to take some of these tiny mold lines off of the back and she'll be good to go. I also finished all the big quad damage resin casts for the Kickstarter, so I'll be able to ship these out soon. Playing with putty and making new sculpts is a lot of fun and a break from all this stuff, but this is priority number one. A little bit more progress on the details here. Some nice shelf fungus. The spine really came out good. I should remind you to subscribe to my channel if you actually want to see this thing finished at some point. I will finish it. It is going to take a while. I don't really know how to wrap this video up, but let me take a shot at it. Hopefully I don't do anything too weird.